I just hear that, or did everybody hear that? Okay. So I'm going to be very honest with everyone. There's only 3 times in my life that I've fully written out the words that I've wanted to share. It's a little bit, well, it's wonderful being here. And for some of you, this might be the first time you've seen the shul in what we thought would have been weeks and possibly then months, but now over a year. There are 3 moments actually in the shul where I remember writing something. One was actually with transition with board when things were coming in and the importance of being able to align, which I think is a result of that. We see the strength of our leadership and our community because it was a very important moment. A second time actually was on Yom Kippur, a few years ago, plus a few days from now, when there was a need for us to take care of our building. And since then, thank God we've come together. They just finished the last parts of the roof, so we're completely leak-free. We're in the best financial position as a result of that speech and the involvement of everybody. And in many ways, I just thought that this was an important time, a very important time. And I want to thank you guys for coming on this evening. And while I usually love to speak a little less from a piece of paper, know that they are all words that come from the heart. As with all of us, it's been a very busy, probably couple of weeks, let alone year. We're coming off of Baruch Hashem, 2 brothers in from Israel. We just sent back the second one today, 2 kids off to Israel in the past week, 2 weddings that we were part of this past week, a bar mitzvah. Life is always busy and wonderful. And therefore at this time, I just thought I really wanted to capture some of the thoughts. The small print is, I'm sure it's not all the thoughts, but I have Rahmanas on you and I don't want to keep you on all night in case you want to get back to Netflix on the other channel. But I did want to spend 15, 20 minutes together. So first of all, just thank you. Thanks for coming out. It's amazing to see everyone's faces because I think it reminds us what it's like to see the faces of our community. It's not just names, it's not just an email, it's not a list on a mazel tov when we hear something, or God forbid other life cycles. They're people, and we've been physically distant for way too long. And it's just nice, even though it's virtual, it's not the same thing, but I thought we could start off by at least seeing each other because I think it's nice and it gives me personally tremendous joy, and I hope it gives you the same joy as well to see our extended SDC family. But there's another reason why, obviously, in addition to that. We're here because I want to speak a little bit about the Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashana, the high holidays, the year ahead, and coming back together, and what that means and what perhaps our mindset should be. Now, I don't want to keep people too long this evening, and obviously, as I've said to anyone, I'd be happy to speak to anyone in the days ahead. But tonight, I want to spend a few minutes attempting to paint a picture for you, a picture of what's been going on behind the scenes for the past few weeks, and to perhaps maybe frame our perspective. As always, our perspective starts with the Torah. So I want to share with you a nice idea from this coming week's Parsha. As we mentioned, Esther, Jason, Mazel Tov, we just had a beautiful bar mitzvah in this shul not 12 hours ago. And on that, many of the people who are on this Zoom who were present for that bar mitzvah, Sean Pivovich, our bar mitzvah boy, laned beautifully. And in a couple of days on Shabbos, he's going to lane again, and he's going to lane even more. And in that Sheni Parsha that he's about to read, there's something very interesting that happens in the second Aliyah. See, it's talking about the Bikurim, the first fruits that come to the temple. And there's a lot of things that have to be done to make sure that it's done correctly. A person has to verbally mention everything they did. They checked off all the boxes. And in the Torah, it says they didn't miss anything. They did it all. But then it ends with 2 words, v'lo shachachti, and we didn't forget anything. And the commentaries, who are trained to always realize that if there's a word that seems extra, it must be saying something, ask the question, if the Torah is already telling us we checked all the boxes, it says the words, and we did it all, then why does it have to say, and we didn't forget anything? If you did it all, then it's obvious you didn't forget anything. So Chazal answers something that I think is truly profound and extremely relevant to the situation that we're in right now. See, in life, one can focus on doing everything that's required of them up front. They can check all of the boxes that are necessary, but still forget. Forget what? They forget what the purpose is. What's the goal? What's the vision of what they're trying to achieve? See, after 16 months of living solely on the defensive, just trying to survive, which was so important and difficult, we often forget what the goal of it all is. And as your rabbi, and my goal, along with, I believe, the entire leadership I speak on their behalf, is to make sure that we are incredibly safe in order to achieve what a shul is supposed to achieve. to not forget our mission, to be a place of inspiring values, growth, connection to Hashem, strengthening our Jewish identity and our family and our community, and securing it for years to come. That's what success looks like. And that's why we all, before this whole COVID thing happened, came together as the community that we are. And sometimes, shachachti, as a result of the craziness that runs around, I forget around my own table that the goal of me is to raise my children, not just to speak about which mask they happen to be wearing at that moment. I forget that when I walk down the street, the goal is to be nice to the people that I interact with, rather than just how do I get past them in order to go ahead and get to my end goal. Ultimately, lo shachachti, as we enter into this Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and the year ahead, it's important that we take a step back and remember. Now listen, as we all know, when you see any production, so much, in fact, the majority of it lies behind the scenes. So I want to start by saying thank you, because we don't say thank you enough, especially when we're not able to come together and have our announcements from the executive wishing thank you to everybody on any given week. So allow me to be their mouthpiece. First, I want to thank everyone who is trying harder than you might realize to make sure that Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, as well as, and more importantly, the entire year of Tafshin Pei Beis 5782 takes place as it should for STC and all of our individuals and families. I want to thank the medical committee, which is steering us through this pandemic safely. And I might add, bli ayin hara, without any issues since the very beginning when we had to close down to the past months when we've been able to open daily and with growing crowds every Shabbos as we welcome back new people for the first time literally each week. And that takes a lot of effort and care and concern on their part. So thank you. I want to thank the members of the executive, who I believe are all on this call, except for our one that's in Eretz Yisrael with their newest grandchildren, for their continuous hard work to keep us afloat financially, obviously safe as well. And I might add, quite successfully. Despite COVID, we're probably in a better financial position than we've ever been. That's not an easy task. And all this is happening behind the scenes as we continue with just worrying about our daily. And I want to thank as well the people who are coming out to daven. You are actually the reason why the shul part of shul still functions during these times. People who not only want to say Kaddish, of our own members and people in the community, friends of some of ours who are looking for a place to say that Kaddish, but people who are committed to help others say it as well by showing up, or simply people who, because they're Jews and we value tefillah and tefillah b'tzibur, come out each and every day and week. And yes, it's been safe to come out. And we have not even seen, bli ayin hara, one case of transmission in our shul since the very start of this. And therefore, all the people that we just mentioned get a thank you for allowing that to take place as well. And to be honest, for all I know, it's the tefillas that those people are offering that we have the safety and security of the community that we do have right now. So these are our shul, STC frontline heroes. And I don't want to be dramatic, but I do want to thank them for being on the front lines of keeping us afloat safely, spiritually, financially, and communally as well. So thank you. And on behalf of each one of us, I would say this is my podcast tonight. We don't often say thank you enough to the people that help us, only sometimes when it gets a little difficult. I urge you, I know how much it means to me when I get them. I urge you to reach out to each or any one of those individuals, even just choose one, and thank them for the efforts that they have. So with that, let's move forward. Now, to be honest, moving forward, I don't have all the answers on my own. And to be honest, I imagine that none of us on this screen do as well. You know, when creating the human being, the Torah writes that God says, Nase Adam, let us make man. And obviously Rashi jumps on that and says, us, let us make man? Who's this us? I thought this was God's show. And Rashi says, you want to know why God says us? Because he reaches out to the angels to confer with them on what and how exactly the plan should go. Now, does God need to do that? Rashi says, of course not. He's God. He knows a thing or two. In fact, he knows all things. But Rashi says the reason why he does that is in order to teach us that in order to get the whole picture, we've got to be humble enough to listen to others, to get their opinions and be open to their perspectives. If this applies to God, then I know it applies to me. I'm sure our leadership and committees understand it applies to them. And hopefully each and every one of us have that same humility as God does to realize that we all need to reach out and listen to other people's perspectives to try our best to get to the perspective that encapsulates all of them. So tonight I want to convey as well that it hasn't been easy. There's not one shul, institution, school. There isn't one store. There's not one home that said, this is a walk in the park. I know exactly how to do this, right? But we're trying. And we're trying not only to do our best, but we're trying for every single one of our members, because every single one of you matter. And if when I say you matter, you're thinking of you, then know that everyone on this screen, I'm saying it to the exact same time. We know that when it comes to opinions and trying to make everybody happy, right? What do they say? You get 2 Jews, you got 3 opinions. So Baruch Hashem, we have 200 member families. So imagine how many opinions we're trying to juggle simultaneously to figure out what makes the best sense. But we're all part of the family. And so all of the voices have to be heard and respected. And I've learned so much just from listening, not even speaking and understanding. And I have to be honest, one of the biggest challenges was to step outside of our own perspective and to try to understand others. And it's hard. And I'll tell you why it's hard. 2 of the reasons why, but I'm sure there are many, is because we don't always know everything that motivates others, let alone ourselves. And the second reason is because we don't always take everything and everyone into account. We just look at it from our context, our snapshot, and therefore automatically dismiss anything that doesn't fit into our view. And it's hard to have that broad reach. I'll give you just a few examples that I came across literally just the past few days. Right? These are just a smattering of examples. I've had people say to me the following, again, no judgment, make sure that we're not going into any of these words and it shouldn't cause a rise. It's just understanding real people trying to do real things. I've had people say, you know what, we should only let people over 12 into the shul. Because kids under 12, even if they can sit by their parents nicely at 11, the year before they become bar bat mitzvah, they can't get vaccinated and they're potentially spreaders. And discussing with the medical committee, that's true. Kids can be spreaders, it's not their fault. So it's a valid point. On the flip side, I have to worry about the families who haven't had their children in shul for 16 months, who are so desperately wanting their pre-bat and bar mitzvah kids sitting next to them as I do want mine, davening because they realize that they're actually at risk of stopping to come to shul potentially. So what do I say in that situation? I've had people who've said, wait, if that elderly person really wants to come but feels a little bit more at risk for personal reasons, well, then they shouldn't come to shul. This isn't the year, even though they want to. But I have to contend with the fact that these are ones who've been going for the past 85 years, nonstop. They might be the first ones in and the last ones out. And for all I know, their tefillos is what makes me and us have our strength. It's possible that this was actually their shuls before I was born. So shouldn't I try to make them safe rather than say, as the rabbi, you're no longer welcome here this year? We've had people who've said that they can't see their kids being at shul at all, even in separated, cohorted downstairs in the programs, away from everybody and safe. So they won't come. And that pains me also. And then what we decided was we reached out and scoured the city to find 3 tents that we could purchase at last minute's notice so we can have youth programming outside. It also will serve for kiddishes in the future because COVID's not going away anytime soon. And the truth is, on the side, it could be tents that could be used and borrowed by families who are making simchas in their backyards who have no way of being able to do something and taking a negative and potentially turning it into an awesome positive if we just have the patience to listen and respond. I've had a parent tell me that if we end up choosing to, not saying we will, but who knows, choosing to get kids tested under 12 so that elderly do feel comfortable, or others as well, they say it's too much of a burden. Why should kids be penalized? And I would stay away with it with my kids and it just won't work. And they say, what should we do then? I say, listen, I'll tell you what I would do. I would sit down with my 11-year-old and I tell them, you know what? I want to teach you about our community. In our community, we care about every single person. And you know what that means? It means there's nothing greater than trying to look out to help others. And so do you know what you're going to do potentially, Mary? Again, if we go down this path, Mary, I need you for 30 seconds to take one of those tests we've been taking for ages so you can go to school to allow someone to feel comfortable to come to shul and respect your elders because we should all be together. Turning what somebody might see as being a why should I into a wow. What a teaching moment for our children. There's so many more examples. And none of them are clear answers and they're all difficult. And when you put all of them together and try to figure out how do you take all 3, 4, 5 of those and the 20 or 30 others that I'm happy to share with you, if you want the postscript after show to this, these are the things that we contend with. And yes, at the same time, of course, does the shul unequivocally say that vaccines are important for everyone? Yeah. We've sent out emails about that. We've taken our members who've wanted to go to make sure that they get that, even though, to be honest, we've taken some slack from people in or outside in the community saying it's not the role, but we believe that's important as well. And we've taken that stance. But at the same time, I don't know, is it our place to ban a person from prayer on Rosh Hashana for those people who choose not to, for whatever reason that I might not know? Can I say confidently that God will look down and say, Yasher Koach, Rabbi, way to go. You should be proud. Well, I mean, the truth is that depends. You know, if the doctors and public health advise that they pose a risk to everyone that's part of how it's set up, well, then we have to act, and then it's our job. And the truth is, I'd say it's even halacha. But, you know, if the doctors say that, wow, are you telling me, Rabbi, that over 95% of the people coming are vaccinated? And if we distance and test, there's actually no risk, and it's safer than most places that people are frequenting on a daily basis. I don't know, then do we have an obligation to enable people to daven if they want to, if everyone can walk away as well? Some of whom might have had generations that have davened here before and whose plaques I literally might see on the wall. What if they care so much about davening that these are people that come out every single week to help make minyan for tomorrow, which we're still short one, but they still keep coming? What happens if I know that it happens to be that one person's scared to have it because of a bad experience they had as a child, and medication actually just scares them? And if they was going to harm anybody else, for sure they would ever, but they can do everything in order to go ahead and protect, but still not be able to. What do I know about people's lives? And I probably know a little bit more because people do have these conversations with me. And yes, it also goes without saying that it's just as important, if not more so, that those who think that others go overboard on how cautious they are about COVID, also, they have to be respectful, because one only has to take into account how we all feel different levels of comfort. It's easy to go down and saying that person's a meshuggah, that's too much, right? 10 yards, that's crazy. You know what? It's been a long and draining 16 months, especially from a mental state. And as I tell my kids often, your feelings might not be reality, but they sure are real. And we have to respect that and do all we can to respect those feelings and fears. Even the person I know who will not hug their grandchildren, despite them and their grandchildren both being double vaxxed, everyone's thoughts and fears should be validated and respected. I really do. And the more I hear the conversations from people, the more you realize that everyone's got a way of dealing with this differently. And our job is to respect the differences while making sure we can come together as a community. With all this, so what do I see as being what our main job is? So I've said to anyone who's asked me about COVID, that I believe in Hashem. I hope I do. I think that was actually in my contract. I have to believe in Hashem in order to be the rabbi of the Orthodox shul. I believe in God. I don't necessarily know his plan always, but I always trust it more than mine. And I also know that if he wanted to, he could get rid of COVID as fast as it came. And do I understand why he doesn't? I don't. But can he? Of course he can. I'll tell you what God can't do. Right? I do know that the one thing he can't do is the same reason why we're still in exile, the same reason why Jews suffer, right? God can't get rid of sinat chinam, hatred of one Jew for another Jew. That, he says, is your job. This is your family. You might find them dysfunctional at times, but your job is to unconditionally love them. And when you as a family unconditionally love your family, when you see your kids interacting with each other that way, parents will do anything for their children. Now, I don't know what you're going through personally. You don't know what I'm going through personally, but I'm committed to try and understand you, and you, I'm sure, are committed to try and understand me and all others in the shul, bar none. The idea of coming back and coming back together is an expression of how it is, I believe, really important to come back. And I'll be honest, not that I've been dishonest to this point, but I'll be even more honest. It's not enough to come back for 3 days. You know, part of the reason why we're trying to sit there and see how can we cross the threshold to come in is because we all know, we've seen Judaism that's a 3-day Judaism, and we know empirically it does not work for generations. And therefore, part of our goal is how do we go ahead and create that bridge for our community to start coming back together in whichever ways and whenever they can. 3 days a year won't give the emotional support for the elderly who come and love to see the kids or the other families that are here. And to be honest, as I look at families and kids, and you can be honest with yourself and hear stories about their Jewish commitment and how it's weakened over the past 16 months, personally, I worry daily. I daven, I kid you not, in the social hall every day for our families, because I'm worried that maybe soon enough, the damage actually is irreversible. That what they care most about in Jews and our sacred mission of passing it on to the next generation, after 2 years of breaking that, we formed our habits at the age that our kids are forming theirs. And if you take that away and you don't put that in at the most critical parts, I'm certain that eventually life will go back to normal. I'm much less than certain that our kids will be able to carry on that baton of what we want them to have. Now, I would say something else, and I hope this isn't stepping out of line, and I think it's important. I think it's important, and it insults a lot of people who put in a lot of time to try their best to make it work. Don't say you're embarrassed to belong to a shul that has a certain policy, or how could you? I'd urge you to say, I'm proud to belong to a shul that tries, and has tried for over a decade, no, for over 6 decades, to be there for me and my family. And I'm proud to belong to a shul that doesn't play a who's more important member to consider than other, or if it's based on money or seniority or age. Say, I'm proud to belong to a place that so many people give so much of their free time, volunteer. We don't have an executive director. People who care enough to try their best to figure things out, especially in a climate that has a moving target. People have lots of opinions and even self-induced fears, which I don't, God forbid, but fully understand. We have to appreciate that they're trying to handle all of these things. I'm proud to be a part of this community. I know that I've never bat 1,000 in my life, but I know that I've always gone to bat and tried my best. And I know that every single person who spent that time thinks that of the other people that are. And like I said, it's a little insulting when people just think that people are frivolously making decisions rather than trying to weigh every single facet. And we all know that backseat drivers are much easier than when you have to actually hold the wheel and everything around you is constantly in vertigo. All this, really just to say and remind us that we have an awesome community. We had an awesome community before COVID. We had an awesome community, have one during COVID. I love the people that come out here, and I love visiting Ralph Lederer across the street after shul, and I love calling El Capelt, who hasn't been here for 16 months. We still have an awesome community. And if we play our cards right, during this very important challenge in time, I think we will have an even more awesome community moving forward. This year ahead is a very important one, an important one to think of others, all others. An important one to think about knowing that COVID is not disappearing anytime soon. I don't mean to be a pessimist. At this point, it's become a realist. Things will continue in some version for a while, back and forth. But I do know that a lot of Jewish identity erodes over 2 years, let alone if it's 3. And if we can come back together, not just for 3 days, but as crossing a threshold in continuously a safe space as we always have, as our medical committee are committed to do, then trust me, I'm not doing this because I care about the shul. I'm not even doing it for the Jewish people. I'm saying this because I care about each and every one of you and your families and your children. In our communication with the executive, a little while ago, I listed the following beliefs and circulated around to remind ourselves about what we stand for as leadership. I'll read them to you. We believe that our duty is to ensure that everyone who walks in our doors is safe, period. We believe that our #1 role as a shul is to provide an environment that spiritually strengthens our community members and especially the next generation and future. We believe as a general principle that taking the vaccine is the right thing to do. We believe that we must follow both provincial law, Toronto public health guidelines, and have an understanding of our community in the situation to know if and when we must do even more than mandated, and when that would actually be harmful to our community if we were to do so. We believe that each and every member is important. Old, young, long-standing members, new members, regular attendees or occasional, all are uniquely important. We believe that it's important to understand that people have different opinions, and our task, as important as it is hard, is to try our best as a shul and as individual members to work together. We believe that discussion is always important. And if I can caveat that, I've learned so much from the discussions that I've had with people who have wanted to sit there and discuss. And that we can go through anything respectfully in any issue. And finally, we believe that the highest value to strive for as a community is shalom bayis. Listen, I hope our track record earns the respect and the trust that it should after making our decisions and staying true to our values that I've just expressed. As many shuls are constantly assessing and reassessing, even to this point, we have been doing the same. Our communication as to the exact requirements for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur will be shared over the coming days. And to be perfectly transparent, as I always am, it was just today that our medical committee gave us the recommendations of 3 scenarios that they could all back. If we would have come out as an executive and leadership saying, this is what we want, and not had the alignment of the scenarios based on what they feel comfortable, that would obviously not be prudent. But if they say, here are the things, but we understand you, executive, rabbi, understand the bigger picture, right? We support. But now you guys have to weigh the options, knowing all of the different facets, given the sense of logistics, the long-term goals, the space, other factors. We trust that you now understand all the pieces and moving parts that went into and continue to go into the discussions that are being had. And we take it, and all of you, trust me, more seriously than you even know. We don't call it STC members. We're a mishpacha. A mishpacha always stays together and looks out for everyone. Let's not let COVID and all the opinions that surround it divide, as we've seen in communities throughout North America and beyond, more than it's already divided us physically. You may not always agree with everything, but there's no room for anger or feelings of betrayal. Just really honest understanding and sympathy for each other. It goes without saying that if you need to speak to me more, please do. Naomi, you'll put my email. You guys all have it in the chat. Honestly, anytime. I will do my best to spend literally every waking hour to try my best. And you know that I usually don't go to bed before 2 o'clock. So there's a lot of hours in the day to get through it all. As my wife and I prepare to celebrate our anniversary tomorrow, we look back at the things we've done in our lives together. We feel blessed today as much as the first day to be in and surrounded by such an amazing community of people that are proud Jews who stand up for Jewish values, who strive their best to do their best, strengthen their Judaism and raise the next generation that way. What was it? For a while, we all know that people used to say that a rabbi and a rebbitzin's no job for a nice Jewish couple. We believe, honestly, and Shira can say if I'm wrong, but we believe that there's no better job and no better community than this one to be a part of and to lead. But as with any relationship goes, the health of it always depends when we go from thinking, what do I think is best for me, into a relationship that says, what do I believe is best for we? That is what we're all striving for. And we look out for each other. And in that schus, I offer a tefillah as I do every day, that just like we look out for our mishpacha, may Hashem look down on us and say he looks after ours as well. So on that note, all that's left to really do is wish you all a sweet, a healthy, a growth-filled year, so we can look back at the year and see we didn't just survive, but we grew, we thrived as individuals, families, and our entire STC mishpacha. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank for all the reach out and the honesty in the conversations. I want to thank for the support that people are giving each other. And I want to thank those who both were able to make it this evening with an open ear and an open heart to hear our words. I hope I accurately reflected all of the leadership in the committees, the medical, the executive, the programming, the virtual programming. And please God, we should be able to find a way to come together, come back together safely in a way that, please God, will make our families stronger. And this year of Tafshin Pei Beis, our best year as a community ever. So on that note, wishing you a Laila Tov. Apparently I have to go pick up milk and cough medicine. So I got to get there before it closes, because that was what came on right before this. And as the email goes, you know where to find me. Laila Tov, everyone.